Welcome, everyone. This is the show that we talked about during the last webisode, and I think we actually mentioned it one time before that. I know a lot of you had some questions about Operfi, um, and Tom, the owner of Operfi, is with us today. So say hello to Tom.
What's going on, everybody? How are you? Tim, thanks for having me today.
Yeah, pleasure. So, guys, if you have questions, we are going to open it up to some Q&A. So if you come up with any questions or anything, make sure you have a pen and paper handy and write those down, and we'll do our best to get those answered for you. So I guess without any further to do here, Tom, I guess I know I've been talking about Operfi to everybody, but hopefully you can elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for having me. And hopefully we can cover a little bit of ground today and provide some education. I'm all about spreading more resources, more information. I think that that's one thing that's really lacking just in the industry in general. So my background, I've been in this space for the past 10 years plus. Prior to that, military experience. And when I jumped into trucking and logistics, I started with an entrepreneurial firm, had probably 4 or 5 employees. There was a factoring division, a logistics division, and an asset side that we managed the carrier profiles and driver administrative support for about 40 trucks. And so I got my hands into all different aspects, the brokerage side, as far as how to build a small brokerage up into a larger operation. And at the time that I was there, at one point, they were doing over $1 million a month in gross sales. And then the factoring side, I had worked that. That was kind of my primary division. That was my bread and butter. I stayed there and helped grow that firm for 7, 8 years plus. And when I branched off about 4 years ago. I started Operfi, and I saw a lack of customer service in the industry. I saw a lack of education. And the other big thing for us was I knew while I was there at my last shop that my best clients, that were all veteran-owned businesses. And myself being a veteran, maybe there's a little bit of a bias. So I decided that there was a little bit of a lack of just overall service in the industry, but there was a lack of appreciation for the demographic of our veteran communities. So I essentially branched off, started Operfi, and to provide, superior customer support, education, training. And then I can proudly say that we're, I think, the only factor in the country that's doing veteran discounts and is veteran owned. So when it comes to factoring, no one's reinventing the wheel. Everyone's doing the exact same. We've got the phone apps and the portals. And so whenever anybody says that, this one's better, that one, there are those nuances for sure. So we can dig into the differences between one shop and the next. And a lot of people think it's rate, but really it's not, because you can get the best rate in the world and then no one's answering the phone at another shop. But I think what really separates us is the fact that we are there to provide. We're always answering the phone, number one. But number two, we're big on training, education. One of the things that we're launching here in about 2 to 3 weeks is a training platform that is completely free for all of our clients. And we're calling it the Operfi Carrier Academy. And new clients who are signing up as a trucking company can really understand all the nuances of building a trucking operation. I think we all saw what happened over the last 2 years with COVID. You had everybody that was entering into this trucking market. And then what happens when freight rates go down, fuel prices go up, and now everyone's cost structure is just completely blown. And now you've got this mass exodus of trucking companies. So we thought about this idea of building out this training program for our carriers that helps them develop a business plan, really breaks down their break-even costs and cost structures and their financials, because we want to see these businesses start from 1 truck and thrive to a 10-truck operation. So we're excited. That's launching here in a 2 to 3 week period. And then what we're doing, and because I can't keep myself staying still too long, is we are doing that for the brokerage side as well. So we're doing it now for our clients, and it's free for our clients who sign up. And then the next piece of that, we're going to be branching off and building out our brokerage training program. And I think we're going to hit some really good topics today. but it's really going to dive into the details of building broker credit and how a new broker can be successful in this space and just some of the things that they need to do. So I know it's kind of a long-winded workaround, but that's kind of a little bit about my background, what Operfi does, and hopefully we can kind of cover a little bit more ground today as well.
Yeah, a lot of great points there. I know, just to kind of elaborate a little bit on what you said, I know that there's a lot of brokers out there that don't understand credit. And even though they're moving freight, sometimes they don't get that credit, to show up 6 months, 9 months, a year. I've even heard over a year at times. And I know that there's a faster process to get that established. So, yeah, I think that's something that would be very beneficial to a lot of the new brokerages out there, especially.
Yeah, when I think about a brand new broker that's just starting off, trying to build credit, I always start off with think about yourself when you were 18 years old and nobody was able to approve you for a car, right? And you maybe were able to get a $500 credit card, but all the banks, you couldn't really get approved for anything. As a brand new business, as a brand new brokerage, you have to think of yourself as that 18-year-old kid that's just trying to get approved. And you have to start slow. You can't go running out of the gate and say, all right, I was an agent for Global Trans or Landstar for a number of years, and I'm able to take my customer relationships. I know that I can do $50,000 a month. Well, guess what? The factoring companies that are out there, they're only going to give you maybe $2,500 of credit at a time. So if you're working with a dedicated carrier who you've been working with them for the past six months, well, guess what? They've extended credit to the Landstars and the Global Transes of the world. They haven't extended credit to you. They need to make sure that you're financially viable. So it's always important to kind of think through first that you're brand new and it's a little bit of a grind in order to start slowly establishing that credit with some of those entities that are out there.
For sure. The other thing you had mentioned was about kind of on the other side of the table with trucking, and kind of the change that we've seen since COVID and with the way rates are right now and fuel, the market being down. I think they're especially for a lot of owner operators out there, especially, and small fleet owners that don't understand why the market is down the way it is. I think and we've kind of talked about this in previous videos. In fact, I've got some very long established customers that I don't know if it's kind of come down from the upper echelon of management or what, but yeah, they've pushed rates down to a point to where it's just not beneficial for the carrier or myself,
Yep.
And some of it was even on our contract rates. They wanted to switch everything from yearly to quarterly, and it's gotten rough, but I understand it because, carriers and owner operators, they deal with us directly for the most part. So we're the easy ones to blame. But yep. I think that if they could see actually what shippers are paying or what they're, what types of rates they're approving, in fact, I had a call the other day. I don't remember if I mentioned it in the video Monday or not. I actually called a prospect, and he said, "Nope, I got plenty of trucks, and they're all running pretty cheap." Click, and hung up the phone.
Yeah,
I was kind of flabbergasted by that, but it's just more to my point, with that, I guess. But yeah, it's sorry.
I got a question for you on that rate comment too, and just kind of, this is more or less maybe what your opinion is, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of noodling around with the idea of this depressed freight rate environment and how much the double brokering scams and fraudsters play into that, because I find it fascinating that if you've got, say, you got a load that's going from I don't know, we'll say Oklahoma down to Houston, and it's paying $2,000. I'm just making something up off the top of my head.
Sure.
And that same you find, and if that's the lane that's being quoted at, and then somebody posts that load out there legitimately, and then you have one of these double brokering scammers that's going out there and they're posting that load out there for $1,500, same exact load, right? Well, the DAT load board, when they're aggregating all of these prices, they're gonna average the two, right? So they're naturally, you got two loads, even though it's only one load out there, and now they're saying that lane is a 1750 load, right? So I always think through, because we're seeing it constantly. I mean, we see it through our carriers that they're asking for credit checks, that we're constantly denying them, and we're monitoring the double brokering space very much so, and we're very sensitive to it, and we see how often. I'd be curious if like the DAT would be interested in kind of investigating to figure out how many loads that are out there, what is the percentage of loads, and if it's maybe a 10% of total volume of loads that are out there that are being double brokered, well, they should be able to factor in and figure out how much of the double brokering market and community is actually depressing rates a little bit. And maybe that lane that should have been for $2,000 is now being offered at $1,750, which then in turn, your customers might be out there on the DAT trend lines and they're seeing now that that lane is depressed and carriers are offering lower because everybody they're all visible to it. So and then you have a brand new broker that gets in, and instead of quoting it at a rate that is fair and reasonable, they just look and see, oh, okay, well, the 7-day, lane for that, the going rate is it's for 1750. So I always kind of wonder, and I know it's kind of a not really a question you could answer, but I wonder how much of that is actually depressed because of what we're witnessing in all these double brokering loads that we're seeing out there.
That is an awesome question. In fact, that's something that I believe I'll probably reach out to my DAT rep and discuss with them and find out. I honestly haven't had a ton of experience with double brokering because I use probably 99% of the time I use the same carriers.
Yep, good for you.
So I don't really end up posting a lot to the spot market, but I have had a couple of carriers that run from me from time to time. I've got a couple of like obscure lanes, that don't ship very often, but when they do, usually it's just a phone call. But the one gentleman out of Phoenix, he actually called me the other day, and I think that he's a victim of it. And he was asking me if there was any way I could help him with that. And I said, well, you've got to send me over, kind of the details on that a little bit more. So I think when he gets parked tonight, he's going to probably call me and shoot me over his information. So.
And this is a carrier that you have?
Yeah, that runs for me semi-regularly.
I mean, I always tell our guys to look at that BOL. The second that you pick up, if it's a blind BOL and it doesn't have who the actual carrier is, that carrier better be Tim's Logistics, or it better be Tom's Trucking on there. And if it's somebody that you don't recognize who it is, or if you pick it up and it's supposed to be a Tim's Logistics load and all of a sudden it says Schneider on it, guess what? Red flag. Don't pick up the load. Or just don't even deliver it until you figure out, because chances are you're hauling that load for $300, $400, $500 less than that load is actually paying. So we try that. Those are the types of things that we try to just educate our clients on, and making sure that we're putting more money back in their pocket. And at the end of the day, they're more viable. They're going to grow and scale, which then is good for us.
For sure. Yeah. And I also wonder, because some brokerages will co-broker with one another.
Yep.
And those names aren't necessarily on there. And even if they are, how do you really know?
Yep.
If
Exactly.
it's a co-brokered load or if it's double brokered. I actually have quite a few shippers that basically just have a very generic bill of lading. There's no name on it. My name's not on it or anything. It's kind of unfortunate, but there again, I've established relationships with my carriers, to the point to where they know that load is mine.
Yeah.
And I provide transparency with them as well. They pretty much know what I'm making on a load.
Yep. Well, that's good. Yeah. And I think that kind of is maybe a good segue into, how you build broker credit and maybe how you try to differentiate from somebody who is a bad actor versus somebody who actually is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I think the big thing is credibility. The number one thing I tell brand new brokers is that because of these fraudsters that are out there, a lot of them overseas, and a lot of the problems that we're having, that they're in these call centers. I mean, you can hear it, it's that what separates you as a brand new brokerage versus some of these fraud entities. And it has to be the fact that you need to establish credibility for yourself. Think about that. These scammers, they're not playing a long game, right? Because once they get found out that their load is being double brokered, they're going to shut that authority down in 6 months, and they're popping up another one. If you are a legitimate broker that plans on being in business for 5-10 years plus, you're going to go out there and legitimize yourself. You're going to have a good website. You're going to go out there and have a good social media presence. You're going to have things like Google My Business, which verifies your actual address. And you're going to have things that are verifiable that you can verify through a third party, right? Maybe it's Google reviews or things that maybe provide you some legitimacy that these guys aren't doing. Now, can I say that they're not going to be doing that forever? Pretty soon they're going to catch on, but there's going to be other ways that we're going to be able to develop, I think, to confirm the validity of these companies. So when for a brand new brokerage starting off, think about the first, if for those of you who are going to be going out to dinner tonight, guess what? You're probably going to be hopping on Google reviews. You're going to be hopping on Yelp, and you're going to be looking at the reviews and looking at people saying like, oh yeah, I'm going to check out this menu and I'm going to check out the picture that these other people have posted. And I think that if you can think about how you as a consumer are looking at these places that you're going to be visiting and doing and transacting business with, then you have to, as a brand new brokerage, think that that's how the market is going to view you. So you better have a good website. You better have the ability for people to leave you good reviews, and don't just rely on places like the DAT load board, because that's what the factoring companies are going to be doing. So my credit department and the other credit departments that are out there throughout the nation, they're examining you through a microscope. And so they are trying to determine, because we're taking this risk, right? We're buying a $3,000 invoice today. I want to make sure that I'm getting paid on it in the next 30 to 45 days. So if I have a fear that that double broker or whatever is going to be shutting down in 30 days, I'm going to tell my client, sorry, we're not going to buy that load. You're going to have to bill that yourself. But if I can go out and establish some of those credible, if I can find out, okay, wow, these guys have a really good website. These guys have a good social media presence and they've been around for a while. Hey, I'm on LinkedIn. Guess what? I can see the owner and he's smiling at me. I can put a face to the name, and he's not afraid to put an about us section on his website. Like there's a human element to that says that I'm not afraid for you to know who I am. And I think just those little tiny details like we do as consumers to verify businesses and their legitimacy, a new broker needs to think of that as even though you haven't developed that credit score yet, that'll come, don't worry. But the factoring company is absolutely looking at those things to differentiate between you and that fraudster. So I think that's an important start for any new freight brokerage operation that is first and foremost trying to establish that credibility.
For sure. I actually kind of use that same process when I'm prospecting potential new customers. See if they've got a website, if they've got a LinkedIn presence, reviews. And then on top of that, if I look at the reviews and I see that like their rating is very small, I'll look at the reasons why.
Yep.
Was it maybe just a customer, that some Karen that went off on a rant, or is this from drivers that are saying, hey, I've sat here for 7 hours. I had an appointment at noon. It's 7 p.m. now, and I still don't have a doc yet.
Yep.
You know exactly what I mean? I don't want to work with that customer because all it's going to do is cause a headache.
Yep.
They're probably not going to be very credit worthy when we run credit on them. They probably know that they're going to end up paying detention, or they don't have any detention policy whatsoever, or layover. It's just more of a headache than what they're worth. I mean, there's tremendous amount of shippers out there. They're not the only ones, so I move on.
It's so funny because I feel like we are a behavioral species, and I feel like companies, they perpetuate the same things over. We had a situation today. My CFO is calling me and talking about this check that we received back in November, and we're looking into it, and they were basically saying like, hey, we ended up paying you guys for this check that we were supposed to put a stop pay on, but we never did. And so we had to do all this research and look, and we were able to find the item, and we're sitting there, and they sent us a double payment. And I was like, there's no way that they sent us a double payment, because everything in our books, we applied it to a particular account, so then we could have reversed it and sent the money back. But we ended up, if no one calls or it doesn't hit the bank, it doesn't actually take place. And so we're finding out now, it's almost 5 months later, and they're calling us up and saying, oh, hey, yeah, we owe you for this particular payment. So, but we had this payment that we never put a stop pay on. And why don't you just go ahead and apply that to those open invoices? I'm like, no, that's not how this works. And when we look back in the collection notes from that broker, it even showed in there the collection notes, because we copy and paste the emails, that it's basically them communicated internally at their brokerage department saying like, oh yeah, such and such didn't reply all, and such forgot to do this. But my point is that you're always going to do the same behaviors over and over again. And for some of these brokerages, like you said, the shipper that you're calling, if you're finding these reviews and they're doing that once, chances are they're probably going to be a bad experience and do that again. So we're just creatures of behavior that continue to perpetuate those things. So those reviews are super important, not only, like you said, in a prospecting way, that you're trying to figure out, okay, is the shipper worth their word and salt, or do I want to work with them? Are they going to be doing those? Are they going to be a hassle for me later? That's the same way that you have to think about yourself as a new brokerage, because if those carriers are providing those reviews and they're negative on you, guess what? All the other people are going to see that, and they're probably not going to want to work with you, in 2 or 3 months from now as well.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Does anybody take a quick little break here? Does anybody have any questions while we're at it? I know a lot of you guys were looking forward to the show. Give them just a moment here.
I can't really see too many comments or anything.
Yeah, sometimes there's a little bit of a lag there. And sometimes I'll wait till right at the very end when I'm getting ready to stop, and then I'll start seeing them sort of float in. But okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll hold them till the end then, if you guys don't have any other questions. So for those that maybe aren't familiar, not just kind of jump topic here for a moment, explain recourse versus non-recourse.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So one thing, and we always encourage, like I said, education is critical. And I get this question all the time. Well, such and such factoring is offering a true non-recourse plan. And I have to stop and explain what it is that non-recourse really is. And so 9 times out of 10, your sales rep that you're speaking with is a 22, 23-year-old kid fresh out of college, doesn't really understand factoring, but knows that he knows enough to get by. And he probably doesn't even know the real difference between recourse and non-recourse. From a legal perspective, non-recourse means if and only if the broker files for bankruptcy or is insolvent. So a lot of times a factor and how they market it is, hey, if there's we're true non-recourse. So that means if the broker doesn't pay, we don't charge you back. Now, when I ask those same carriers to send me over, or brokers to send me over your factoring agreement, and we go through their section of the non-recourse description and all the fine print, it says that in the event of a dispute, in the event of claims, damages, shortages, if you were late, if you didn't turn your GPS on, if there was something that the carrier or the client did that was not the fault of the factor, then you're going to get charged back. So for them to say, so basically it's all of these scenarios, 99% of the time when a broker doesn't pay, it's because of a dispute. It's because of a short pay, a claim, damages, they were late. There's all these miscellaneous fees that are out there that the factor is 100%. They are not eating those fees. That's the carrier's fault. You're going to get charged back, or it's the broker's fault. And so for that, for the marketing out there of recourse versus non-recourse, there's a lot of misinformation there, mismarketing behind it. Non-recourse only applies if and only if the broker files for bankruptcy. And where some people might say, well, hell, that non-recourse, that's enough for me. We're in an economic environment where companies can be going out of business. I still want to be protected there. So in those scenarios, the factor is going to want to charge an additional fee, because now they're saying to you, hey, now my risk has increased, so I'm going to charge you a higher factoring fee for the non-recourse plan. And why I don't like that, us as factors, I've got 4 to 5 different credit sources that I use. And of all those sources, I can look at your customer and I know when they go from a 30 pay to a 45 to a 50, 60, etc. So I can track their trends. So if I have you signed up for a non-recourse deal, meanwhile, I'm charging you more, right? Because I've got more risk. And I see they go from 30 to 45 and so on and so forth. If they haven't filed for bankruptcy yet, I can still charge you back. So that's what I don't like about the how it's marketed, because a factoring company can still look at all their resources and deem that as being that there's an issue there, that they haven't filed for bankruptcy yet. So now I'm still going to charge you back because it falls within the non-recourse terms, that they're disputing this load or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of, I always say, you can find a true non-recourse plan and that's fine. But my point is, don't expect to understand the differences and understand what those are. And in my opinion, do not get charged more for a non-recourse plan, because I feel like the factoring company, regardless, is still going to charge you back before that debtor actually, if they do in fact file for bankruptcy. That stuff rarely happens. I would say it happens 0.01% of the time, where non-recourse actually protects you. And if there are individuals that are out there that their non-recourse plan has protected them, give me a call. I'd love to hear about it, because I never do. And if the factoring company says that maybe it did protect you, I would imagine that somewhere in your reserves or somewhere in your accounts that they're hiding from you, that there actually is an account that has that $1,000 balance that they're waiting for you when you leave, and they're probably going to apply it as like an administrative fee or something. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the recourse versus non-recourse. I think it's kind of BS, to be honest with you.
Sure. Looks like Frank jumped on here and said, "Thanks for the shirt, Tom."
Frank was asking for that shirt for I don't know how long, and he finally gave me enough hell where I was like, "Hey, Frank, what's your shirt size, man?"
So you mentioned, if a broker went bankrupt and this kind of thing, or just hasn't paid, for those carriers, whether they're factoring or not factoring, what's the best way for them to go about filing on a broker's bond?
Oh man, I love this. I love this topic, and I don't love it because you never want to have to deal with it. But a quick little story. So I when I started the business, I wrote a blog article, and you can Google it and find it, how to file on a broker's bond. And so I put it all in place and put down the tutorials, and I've been in on some training classes and taught a lot of carriers and, how you go about it and everything. And since then, it's gained a lot of traction. So now when you Google how to file on a broker bond, Operfi is #1 in the search results. And we have a tutorial on how you do it. And I've learned from carriers who call us up asking if we could help them out, and ask them, well, how'd you land on us, and why are you giving us a call? Oh, my factoring company sent me your link, and so I'm seeing if you. So I'm like, wait a minute. So your factoring company, do they not know how to do this, or are they too lazy and they don't want to educate you, or are they just charging you back? So it's a very simple process for carriers. And so I would encourage you to just, you can Google it and you can find that information, but super easy. You go onto Safer, you figure out who their surety company is. And my experiences have always been that the surety companies and the bonding companies are always super helpful, because they're an advocate for carriers. Like, yeah, that they don't want to have to be paying out if there's an issue, but they also understand that they are a tool for the subcontractors, i.e. carriers that are out there, to get some sort of resolution where certain brokers aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. So now, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're a good broker, guess what? You rarely have to talk to your surety company, and you're all set, and you don't have any issues. But for those who are having those issues on a ongoing basis, I'm sure you're on a first name basis with the agent or whatever. Just at the end of the day, let's do the right thing. Let's do the right thing for everybody. Let's make deals happen. If you have a carrier, a lot of times, sometimes that they're at fault for something, and sometimes there's deals that can be worked out. I always encourage carriers, like if they have a bond, or if they want to file on a bond and there's not really any proof, and it's like, hey, I don't think you're going to get approved on that bond issue, and it's a $300 load. Do you really want to file a claim on your insurance for that? Like, call up the broker and see if you can negotiate. Like, hey man, or if it was like a $600 load, why don't you eat $300? You'd be surprised how often that no one wants to go through the hassle. They know you delivered the load, and just be reasonable, be professional. And sometimes, that goes along. What's the saying? You catch more flies with salt or with sugar than vinegar or something. So,
Right.
sometimes you can be a little bit more professional, and you can negotiate some pretty good outcomes. So.
Frank says, bill the shipper. End of story.
Well, you can do that. Now, if I'm a carrier, you bet. So like, that's a really good point. We had one that we were concerned. I have a carrier who is concerned about taking this load, and we do not know if it's double brokered or not. However, the carrier was listed on the bill of lading. So I was like, okay, I think we're sitting pretty here because you're on the BOL. We can't file on the bond because it's not 30 days yet. So, because they're going to deny it. The commodity was a covered commodity, so they were all good there, and it was like a $7,000+ load. And the next step, I said, well, we could bill the shipper. However, the problem there, they still have like another 2 to 3 week window that they're expecting this payment. So we're hopeful. We're crossing our fingers. But I told him, I was like, we could go nuclear. We could go after the shipper and we could bill them directly, because you're listed as the carrier of record. You're on the BOL. You got every leg to stand on legally that you hauled this freight. But, always remember that a lot of their broker carrier agreements, you're always going to have back solicitation language that you can't go after. You can't communicate with the customer. So in that scenario, I always say tread lightly and use it as a kind of a last ditch effort. If they haven't paid in 30 days and then you file on the bond and the bonding company is denying it, maybe it's because of the commodity or whatever the situation was. And as a last ditch effort, go after the shipper, and we can usually rattle some cages there.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was kind of a good thing to kind of bring up, because I was thinking back earlier in the conversation in regards to, some of these fly-by-night freight brokerages and that operate from overseas. It's important to, file on the bond right away, because if they owe you, they probably owe numerous other carriers as well. And on a $75,000 bond, while it might seem like a lot, I've heard so many horror stories that it's already gone by the
Oh my
time they
gosh.
filed, and they're just out. I personally don't think, and maybe I'll get some backlash on this. I personally don't think that brokerages and trucking companies should be allowed to do business here if they're not based here. I think that would eliminate a lot of this, or at least to some extent.
How do you police it? I mean, that's the thing, and I agree. But if you have, because all of these entities are established through shell corporations and law firms sometimes, and PO boxes and UPS store locations, and again, going back to how to legitimize yourself. Us as factors, we got a pretty decent pulse on that area. And so the good ones, I should say, there's a lot of bad factors that are out there that are stupid, and they approve things just because they see, oh, this is an invoice, I'm going to make my $30 factoring fee right here. It's no, we're perpetuating the problem here. We have to at some point stop what's going on in the market and examine and look at those types of things. So going back to, like I said, the how do you establish that credibility versus these other bad actors. Maybe, and again, I'm never an advocate. I understand that a lot of us are working out of our house, and I get that you're small business owners, but there are plenty of other resources that are out there that you can go and rent virtual space at a Regis, at a WeWork, or some of these virtual offices that are more professional businesses that maybe it's an office space, or maybe you just have a secretary that's answering the phone, or maybe they're just forwarding your mail, but they're a little bit more expensive. They're a little bit more professional. And some of these scammers that are out there, they're not going that extra mile. And so to my point of always thinking, number one, I'm this brand new entity. I'm 18 years old trying to build credit. But number two, how am I going to separate myself from these scammers that are out there? And I'll even give you just a tiny little example too, because I could go off for hours on just these, how to separate yourself. When I go to a website, if I go down to your website and I click that little bird down there that says go to Twitter, or if I go down to that little Facebook icon and I click it, where does it go? Does it actually go to a Facebook page, or does it go to a Wix Facebook page or a Wix Twitter page? Because that's typically somebody gets on a Wix page or a GoDaddy page, and they're trying to build a page. It's the details. Details matter, and these entities, like you say, that are trying to basically grow a $300,000 or $400,000 a month operation, and they know that they have a $75,000 bond, and then they just shut off like that. Guess what? They're not paying attention to the details. So you have to. Our factoring credit departments and the factors all throughout there, they're looking at those things. And again, like I said, at some point they're going to wise up, right? We're going to give these little tricks, and they're going to be out there, and they're going to be putting in the work and doing these things. But I feel like at that time that hopefully there's going to be an evolution. It's almost like what is it, like the CIA is always like they're hiring guys like Frank Abernathy who did like check fraud or anything like that. So you're right. At some point the FMCSA and the DAT hopefully will be able to regulate these things and catch them, but it's going to be a constant moving target that they're going to figure out ways around it. So it's at the end of the day, I don't think that you can really replace that credibility aspect, and I think that there's always going to be tools for us to really verify. And I would bet you there's going to be enough people get burned in this industry that sooner or later there's going to be verification scenarios like ID.me, or tools that confirm your identity and who you are and whether or not you're a legitimate business owner or not.
Right. Yeah, I hope so, because I do believe that we need to have some better policing on that type of thing, because it's killing the industry.
Yep.
So Tom, how do people get a hold of you if they want to sign up for the training? You had mentioned earlier.
So the training piece that we're going to be launching, we haven't really figured out. Obviously, I can give people my number. They can go to our site. They can give us a call, shoot us an email. We're launching it. It's going to be free for our clients that sign up. We are dipping our toes in the broker factoring space right now. So that's going to be something that's going to be launching here very soon, that we're going to get a little bit more aggressive on our marketing efforts and launching that as well. But for new carriers that sign up, for our current clients, all that stuff is going to be free. And we haven't really kind of figured out the marketing aspects for other carriers that are just looking to try to better themselves and build a business plan and figure out their cost structure. But obviously, Operfi.com, give us a call. You can call me directly. If you get onto the site, you can call and you can get direct. I'm always available. It's one thing that's different. My number is 682-330-7700. But for me, this is my livelihood, and I feel like there's not too many owners of factoring companies that are out there that are willing to put their information out there, to speak to their clients, to help better their businesses. And so for me, it's more of a personal mission, and I'm more connected because my clients' livelihoods are my livelihood. So, I'm always available. Give me a call, shoot me a text. I'm there for, like I said, if you have that client who's in this double brokering situation, have him give me a call, and maybe I can help walk him through it if there's something that I can do.
Okay. Yeah, that is one thing. I mean, that like with you, the communication's always been stellar. I've dealt with other factoring companies in the past, and you just never hear back from them at all. Leave a voicemail, smoke signals, carrier pigeon, telegram, email, nothing. And it astounds me. So many of them, they preach, kind of like you had mentioned, we want you to grow because when you're successful, we're successful, the whole thing. But then you can never get a hold of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were really fortunate to be able to partner with you. And I'm glad that Shaggy put me in touch with you for sure.
I'm excited for when we get to the broker space, and when we can start, doing the broker training, and anything that I can do to help any of your viewers. If they're in sticky situations, that's the thing. I'm not the type of person that hangs up the phone because you're not working with us. It's like, I always kind of see it as a challenge. I like figured out puzzles. And so it's like, give me a call. Let's see what we can do. If I can get you paid, if I can get you more money on that, I would love to get you in touch with somebody that can. And so for me, I think that, and again, that's one thing that's really different from the Operfi and our core values. We're big on education. We're big on educating our clients and our carriers and just the market in general.
So what kind of contract terms does Operfi offer?
We have a couple of different options, and really a lot of it is because we offer a trial option for 3 months. It's a 90-day agreement. And the reason why we do that is because there's so many bad actors that are out there, and it just gives the community a bad name. So we have a trial option, and typical, just to kind of give you an idea of starting rates for, say, a one truck operation, pretty similar to the brokerage operations as well, is 3.5% for the 90-day trial, 3 months, 3% flat for the annual 12-month. And we also do veteran and military discounts. So if veteran, military, first responders. So if you have those, if you have that option, then give us a call, and we can customize things too. So we've got larger fleets. Those are just kind of one truck operations. The second that we have larger carriers that are in the 10 trucks and up space, we can kind of do some more custom deals, because obviously volume speaks volumes. So we need to make sure that we can kind of keep with the market with those things, and we can get pretty aggressive. The big thing with us is, we're more about purpose over profits, and we're not here to, some of these factors are big fat cats, and even with the interest rate environment, our cost of capital has gone up significantly, but we have never raised our rates for our clients. We just think that there's something about that. There's a lot of factors that they have that baked into their contract, that they have a section that talks about prime rates, that, oh yeah, if the prime interest rates goes up and this, that, and the other thing, then we're going to increase your rate. And prime interest rate today, come on, a lot of these guys don't really understand, what the Wall Street Journal is posting prime rates today. So I always say the analogy, that would be the equivalent. If I raised my rates, that would be the equivalent of my carriers' fuel rates and diesel prices going up. And now their costs have gone up. And now they want to come back to me and ask me to lower my rates because their costs have gone up. So it's just as a general philosophy and practice, our cost structure is our cost structure. That's our what we're supposed to be managing. So we're never going to increase those rates. So hope that gives you kind of an idea of where we stand on rates. And I think that we've surveyed the market, we are right in line with all of the good factoring companies that are out there. And I think that our service is even better. So I think that what you get, even for that fair rate that's out there, you're actually going to get a lot more on the service side of things too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's see. Oh, Frank says, I help if I can. You guys are always welcome on my shows. I appreciate it, Frank.
Frank, this is this 2023. I've got this new goal of mine to participate in more shows. So I would love to hop on a show and shoot the trucking with you, buddy.
Does anybody have any other questions for Tom and myself? Anything they'd like to add? Don't be bashful.
Yeah, Tim, if you want to post just my phone number, my email address, more than happy. We've got a couple of free tools that are out there, break-even calculators and certain things like that. But people can obviously come to our website and give me a call directly, and I'm more than happy to speak with them even if it's just something, just a nuanced little problem that they have.
I'll put that up across the screen. You guys can reach Tom by phone and email. I don't have it saved into my...
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, it's tcroto at operfi.com.
Okay. Yeah, and if you guys want to give Tom a call, email him, or if you're on Facebook, you can DM me and I can put you in touch with Tom as well. Or email me at freightmasterresources@gmail.com.
I put it up there. I put it up there in my where my picture is too.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Awesome.
Cool. You got anything else for me, Tim?
I guess not at the moment. I was kind of hoping everybody would ask some more questions. I know I had several people, and even from other groups than ours, that were really kind of looking forward to the show. I guess I sort of assumed that they were going to ask a bunch of questions today. So,
well, if you got more and if you want to direct them to me, absolutely send them my way. Or if you want to have me hop on another time, and I'm happy to answer those as they come in.
Okay. Appreciate it. That's awesome. Oh, Rajindu, yep, she's a very faithful follower of the channel. So thanks for watching. But yeah, I guess if nobody has anything else, we'll go ahead and wrap that up for now.
Cool.
Tom, I appreciate you coming on and explaining. Excuse me. Again, I got dirt in my eye or something. I think I keep wiping my eye during the show. I was just telling Tom I was almost late because my neighbor got stuck in the snowbank, and I thought, oh, I can help push him out, and rather than yanking him out with the chain or something, and I ended up getting slung, and it was.
I'll tell you Midwestern folk, man, you guys are out there just getting dirty and getting dirt in your eyes and just keeping the country moving, man. Just living the American dream.
It's always fun, though.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
cool.
Again, Tom, thanks for joining us. Guys, as always, be kind to one another. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep.